I'm already behind schedule.
Yep.
So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen, February 22nd, 2024 meeting. Following guidance issued by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 2023 regarding open meeting law, this meeting is being held remotely, and all individuals that wish to participate are doing so or can do so utilizing the Zoom video conferencing technology. The link to this meeting is on the agenda, which can be found on the town website. Also, anyone wanting to listen to the meeting but not actively participate can do so on Facebook, as the meeting is live streaming there. So for the first item of business, I would like to ask for any citizens' comments. All right, there being none, I will move to the first item on the agenda, which is the order and assignment of the May 2024 annual town meeting warrant articles. And we do this every year in preparation for town meeting and the printing of the Blue Book. We go through the warrant articles and we try to put them in order and assign them. Over the last couple of years, we've been looking at them and trying to put them into groupings that make sense, like doing the ones that are housekeeping early on, and then trying to make sure that we have enough time for some of the ones that will need additional discussion. So Mike, do you think we should share what we have for anybody that's trying to follow what we're talking about? Do you think that makes sense to share on the
Absolutely.
screen?
Let me just see if I can pull up a cleaner copy.
The print on the agenda on the packet is actually very clear.
Right.
Okay.
You just enhance it a little bit.
Right.
Chris, could you give me sharing ability? Here we go.
There we go.
Can you see that? Can you see the list?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, Robin, just to your point,
Chris, can you make it bigger? Or Mike, can you enlarge it?
Yeah, that's great, Mike.
Go back.
Thank you.
So we did try to group it similar to last year, where there was kind of different categories. So, financial and budget related articles, zoning and planning, general articles, citizens petitions, and then closing out with the tax rate and town election kind of standard information.
So are there items that we are going to bundle?
This is the first attempt at bundling them.
Okay. So what there are the ones that jump out at me that require minimal conversation and explanation are sick leave for retiring police officers, the appropriations for the general stabilization fund, and it was establish the salaries, revolving fund, the police chief, but the retiring police officers, and contributions to stabilization fund. Those four immediately jumped out to me as consent agenda type items. And I don't know if any of you agree, disagree, would like to see any of those not separated, but
So I think I noticed the town moderator was on the call here.
Yep.
So Jim, I know you've spent a lot of time in the past, trying to arrange these to make town meeting as efficient as possible. And the consent agendas the consent items have worked well in the past. Is that something you would like to continue this year?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Robin. And I think John hit the nail on the head. I would suggest looking at last year's consent votes to make sure we haven't missed anything. But because I think it worked very well last year. If I remember correctly, we had a couple of separate consent votes. And I thought that it went very smoothly and helped expedite the meeting very well.
Okay, so maybe one of the things we could do is go back and work with Mike on identifying items that we all are comfortable with to be as part of the consent agenda. Certainly the operating budget and the capital budget, those need to be, there will be discussion on those.
But unemployment compensation, sick leave,
Yeah, that can all
for
be part of the
retiring,
consent. Right.
appropriations to conservation. There were five. I think the four that I
Right.
listed and the one that I had left out, Robin, was the unemployment compensation fund. So there
Right.
are, I believe last year we also added the ability to borrow for the Dover Sherburne Regional Capital. But if there are specific items within that, that obviously should be a separate line item, not included. If it's just the ability to borrow to get those, that should be included because that is a matter of an operational guideline.
So there are no capital items this year for the region.
Okay, then I would include that. And so that makes 6 items that I just enumerated. And I'm sure there could be more. There may be some that people want to weigh in on, but I would at least start there. Jim, can you think of any that, just by looking through this in the time that you've had spent with this, that you would want to add to that?
No, John, you mentioned the conservation fund, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it. My memory is a little bit fuzzy from last year, but I think that was the bulk of the items we had in the consent. And I'm trying to remember, I'm pretty sure we did it, we bundled them into 2 groups.
Yeah, we did.
If I remember correctly. And I think we did that because we were a little bit concerned that if we put everything into one group and then somebody objected to one,
we'd have to go back.
We'd end up having 6 separate votes. And so I think that it probably would be prudent to follow the same course of action this year.
Yeah. If we just took those 6 items and we split them into 2 separate categories, we could lump the funding for one into one category and just the yes question into the other, something along those lines. I'm sure we could think of the common denominator for each.
Right.
One more quick procedural thing. When the actual warrant articles are being numbered, can we put the two groups of consent items sequential together?
Yes.
So we're not saying Articles 3, 7, and 12.
Right.
And the next one is 14, 21, and 28. You know,
Yeah.
just put them all together. So if nothing else, when everyone's going through their packet, it just moves and goes, all right, we've done all those.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right, I mean, the other thing that we have here, you know, we know, bylaws sometimes take time, so, you know, I would group just the planning board ones together. And then the amendments to the regulatory, to the stormwater, that really is like sort of general operations type stuff. So we should separate that, you know, from my perspective. The articles or the warrant articles that are gonna generate a lot of conversation and that we should focus on how we're going to, what order we're gonna put them in, you know, certainly the bulk of the meeting revolves around the budget, so the operating budget and the capital budget. Even though that's the bulk of the meeting, we tend to spend less time on those, but there will be some discussion on those articles, and we typically do those first. But I do expect that the MBTA lease terms and appropriate design funds, the sponsors, which are Park and Rec, really, we need to work with them to be able to articulate what they're looking for here.
Completely agree. The ones that are going to have people standing in the aisles where Jim is going to have 9 people deep are going to
Right,
be.
but I think, you know, and we need to be able to, they need to be able to articulate what they're trying to do here.
Right.
So, because, you know, keep in mind, the town, we can't approve a lease without knowing really what it's gonna cost. So conceptually, you could say, we wanna move forward with, you know, it's, I don't know what comes for the cart before the horse, if they want to appropriate, you know, get funds for design, that's one thing. If they're trying to take the temperature of the town as to whether or not the town wants them to move forward looking into this, then
You do
maybe
realize-
there's another way to do this, you know, in the
Yeah.
past, we've done those non-binding ballot questions to get a sense of, is this something the town is interested in? I think we did that for the community center a couple of times. So it would be really great to understand what Park and Rec's goal is with this. You may already know, Mike.
Jim, have you met with Chris Bolin?
no, I haven't. And I guess I should. That's a good point, John. I'll put it on my agenda. You know, I would prefer to meet with him later rather than sooner. Because I don't want, as a moderator, I don't want to be viewed as somebody that's advising him about what his strategy should be, you know, in terms of this endeavor. I would rather, when I meet with him, would rather be discussing with him just the logistics of how the presentation should go, what, you know, what sort of PowerPoint he should have, what kind of handouts should he have, who's going to be speaking. And those are usually details that come later in the planning process after they've determined what they want to say. You know, I'm going to be helping them figure out how they should be saying it in order to have a well-organized and efficient meeting.
I think we need, for every one of these warrant articles, we need to know what is being asked.
Yeah.
So you know, accept MBTA rail trail lease terms and appropriate design funds. To me, to accept the terms is problematic if you don't know what the cost. You know, there's a whole lot of work that wants to be. Now, if you're trying to take the temperature of the town, would you be willing to sign the MBTA lease? Because we can't move forward unless we move forward with that lease.
Right, Robin, and I think it's
It's a
really
different
important.
question.
But those are discussions that need to be had among the policymakers. You know, with the Board of Selectmen, potentially the Planning Board, and Parks and Rec. I don't think that I can get involved at that
But
stage.
nobody's suggesting, I mean, the only thing I want out of this is to understand what Park and Rec's goal is here.
Right.
Until we
okay.
understand what their goal is, I don't know what other conversation you could have. So that's one, we need to understand what they're planning to present to the town. You know, I think their goal is to get funding for design work. But they recognize that any design work, if the town won't accept the standard lease, is wasting money.
But
So-
Robin, you're just speculating. At this point,
Right.
we could have these conversations about a number of different, we could comment as you are on a number of these things. I think Jim's point is well taken, that we should let Park and Rec come to us, make it as clear as they possibly can, and then once we know what their intent is, then we'll go back to Jim, go back to Dave.
But John, I'm not suggesting what they're trying to say. That's exactly what I said. They need, you know,
Yeah.
Park and Rec needs to tell us what they're looking for.
Yeah, agreed.
Period.
Yeah, period. And I think there's going to be other, you know, late night potential late night conversation or debate bylaw warrant articles that we just also have to be prepared for. And I think that to put them in the proper order, as we're talking about this evening, is critically important.
Right, so I would say this one would warrant a lot of discussion. Potentially, the stormwater bylaw might. So we need to make sure that we have a good overview of that.
And where's the leash law?
That's a citizen's petition.
Where, I don't see that.
Sorry, it
Oh.
fell off the screen when I made it bigger. You'll see it now.
Right,
Sorry.
right. Then you have the sidewalks and the leash law.
So those four,
Again, right.
those four are going to be very controversial, and
Well, there's gonna be a lot of conversation.
A lot
and
of
we need to
conversation.
Make sure the same rule, you know, the same strategy applies to the citizens petitions where they need to be able to present their value proposition to the town.
do we have, this may sound a bit repetitive because it says it in the bylaw, but the scope of the small, medium scale solar bylaw do we have the warrant article word, any type of warrant article wording on that?
Well, again, we're at the point where there needs to be education about all of these. with
I'll
these
just add that to the
Right.
list
Right.
of
Yeah,
potential.
and I'm sure the planning board has it. I thought I saw Carol. Carol, if you want to comment,
Carol's on.
yeah. Carol Lisbon, the chair of the planning board.
Me?
That's you.
Yes?
That's
So
you.
do you want
Okay,
to,
sorry, I got a brand new laptop, so this is my first Zoom meeting on it, okay? We don't have a draft yet to show anybody. It's gonna be a very simple bylaw. Basically, the only thing that's in our bylaws relative to solar arrays is the large scale bylaw that we did in order to get the transfer station solar array installed.
Mhm.
And we found that we're getting site plan review for medium-sized solar arrays that only slightly smaller than the large scale by definition. So we just wanted to put something simple in the bylaw that will allow us to do a site plan review and inform folks about the requirements for that. So it should be relatively non-controversial. It doesn't it promotes solar installations. It just clarifies something. It's the old situation where the only thing we have in the bylaws right now relative to pole-mounted solar arrays is something about windmills. So we need to bring it into the 21st century.
All right,
Got it.
so,
Thank you.
and then the sidewalk, both citizens petitions presented at Warren Committee. And 2 weeks ago, and Warren Committee gave them feedback, and Warren Committee has assigned liaisons to each of the petitioners to help work with them on their presentations so that they understand, what the process is and how they need to effectively communicate what they're trying to do. And Jim, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Carol, while you're here, what is the housing study proposal going to entail? Because I'm also wondering how much discussion we can anticipate will occur at the meeting with respect to that.
Well, Robin can certainly answer that question too, since it has to do with the Housing Task Force, which is its own
Right,
project.
so what we're asking for, and we need to come up with an amount, is there's a lot of work that needs to be done with the state's mandate for multifamily housing, and we don't have the expertise in-house for zoning and for different ways to accomplish the state's mandates. We were given by the state a consultant to work with us for the MBTA Communities Act, but those funds will no longer be made available to us. So we want to be able to continue to educate the town so that we can potentially come back to the town with, if it makes sense, bylaw changes for different kinds of potential developments. But we just want to make sure that we have the resources because we just don't have the expertise in town. And we need resources and assistance with all the different kinds of multifamily housing developments.
I think that, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
It's okay. No, go ahead, Jim. I just would, I can comment on that part after, but go right ahead. You go.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think that we can probably anticipate there may be some interesting discussion about that.
That's an
Well,
understatement.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, I have to make this perfectly clear. There are no recommendations being made. So the town has a simple decision. Bury your head in the sand and let happen to you what may happen, or try and be proactive, period. And the Housing Task Force will put together a presentation.
Well, Robin, are you saying though, what if to be prepared, the town of Dover needs to come up with money to prepare us for these mandates? And let's make no mistake about it. These are mandates that are being forced upon us.
Well, it's also a philosophy, John. We have a lot of parcels of land that are coming up for sale that are subdividable and may be developed. So we need to decide as a town, like, do we have a strategy for development that would work for Dover rather than have it forced upon us? And we simply don't have the expertise in-house. I don't know what that may be, But it would be nice to be able to get some experts to help us navigate this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think anybody would disagree with you on that part, but you combined in your previous statement, Robin, you combined the MBTA Community Act and their consultant, which we
It-
get as a part of the MBTA.
Right, but
that
those
runs
funds are
out.
running out. That
Right.
is an example of
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of the things.
Yeah, I just, that, my point of clarification was, in your example, the MBTA Act is forced upon us. We first and foremost have to determine if we're gonna go along, continue to go along with that, or
Right,
do
but this
Westwood
is
is
not
doing.
part of this, what we're asking for now.
Yeah, I get that, but I think
What
what's
we're
in,
trying to put in place is, you know, the town has a choice. You can do nothing, and we're gonna continue to have, you know, what, we're gonna have development. And we're gonna continue to have things like Red Robin and Pulte come up, and we don't have any, you know, we haven't looked at what the options could be for us. Maybe none of the options are good, but maybe there are some options that work for Dover.
not disagreeing with any of that. We who should, I think what Jim was saying, what I am saying is, we have to anticipate at town meeting that a lot of these questions are there's going to be lots of people who have very strong opinions about development. There's going to be pro, there's going to be con. We're going to always be faced with development. What we're trying to determine is, some of this we have to be prepared for, whether it's forced upon us, like the MBTA Community Act is being forced upon us, or not. There's going to be other developers like Pulte and like Red Robin 1, Robin 2, that we are going to have to address, regardless of the MBTA Community Act and our.
You're
Yeah.
grappling onto this MBTA Communities Act. I apologize for using that as an example, but you know, what we're trying to do here is just put some money aside so that we could look at the types of options that are available to diversify for development. Because we know that some type of development is going to happen. And it's just to allow us to understand what the trends are. Are there ways to combine development with conservation? You know, these are things that we need help with. And then we will make a presentation to the town. Potentially, there are bylaws we can put in place, but we don't know what any of this stuff is. We're not asking the town to vote on any of this today. We're just asking for some money to get the expertise to look into it.
Robin, what is the timeline for the MBTA Act? Because I think that will be one of the questions that will certainly come
We
up.
need to be compliant, Carol. It's December 2025, is that correct? I believe it's 2025.
I believe it's correct. I actually was talking with Carol about this today. For Dover, it's 2025. There's
Right.
3 groups of towns with 3 different deadlines. Milton was in the early group. There's a 24 group, and we're in the 25 group.
So is that 25 calendar year or fiscal year?
It's December 2025.
Okay.
And we all have learned recently what the state's reactions has been to Milton. So getting some money now and studying this makes a pile of sense to me.
Well, this is just one of the things, you know, we need to look at all of our zoning law rules and see, do they make sense for Dover? We understand that open space is a priority of our citizens, so we should look, you know, look at everything, understand, are there other things we should be doing to try and achieve the goal of our citizens? There's also a goal of many citizens to have a more diversified housing stock. So maybe there are ways to do that. You know, but without having experts, it's very, very difficult to do the right thing. And my goal here is to make sure that we are proactive and not reactive.
Yeah.
There may be nothing we like, but
Just one other thought, Robin. I think we can anticipate that during the discussion of this article, that people will be focusing on the MBTA to some extent, despite your best efforts to keep it broader in scope. And I think that it would be helpful if some people, if you had or Michael had a number about the extent of funding that comes from the state that would be at risk if we're not ultimately in compliance with the MBTA mandate. I think that would be an item that people would want to know in trying to decide whether they want to allocate funds for this study.
you know, Carol asked if she could speak, and that would be fine. You know, we have an MBTA consultant. We are going to issue a report. But again, this is much broader than the MBTA Communities Act.
It is, but I
Right,
think
and that is certainly, we will get that number. I believe we had it in one of the discussions we had on the MBTA. But, you know, as Milton plays out, we will understand how the Commonwealth is going to react to non-compliance.
Isn't Braintree and Westwood also in the same boat where they've
I can't confirm that. Carol, can you hear us? Because we tried to.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've got to work on this thing. I'm covering up the camera because I don't have a cover yet, and I wasn't prepared tonight to be visible. I just wanted to say that this whole issue of housing that Robin has talked about at a higher level is complex. And Jasmine and I have started to work on updating the Dover web pages on housing, so that there will be a spot that folks can go to so that they can understand what 40B housing is and what the MBTA Communities Act is in general, and then to Dover specifically. So the idea would be to get a foundation of understanding out there on the website for folks that are interested. And I think that will help a lot. You know, and obviously some of those major bullet points can be used in a quick presentation at town meeting if necessary. But to Robin's point, this article is not to get into discussion about the pros and cons of MBTA, or what do we do about 40Bs, or what happens with scatter site 40Bs like on Trout Brook. It's to go up 5,000 feet above sea level and say, what is Dover's plan to address housing?
Right.
How can we be proactive? Because right now we are totally 100% reactive. I don't think anybody wants to be reactive.
Like every development, we have our back against the wall because we don't have any tools in our toolkit. And this is what we're trying to do.
Write that line down.
I mean, we need some tools.
we did. I did literally just did that, Dave. Because as we're
You know, we have a housing meeting next week and this is on the agenda. We need to pull together a presentation so we can articulate what we're trying to do. And yes, I agree, some of these things will come up, but it's not, and we will put in the conversation that this is not what this article's about. You know, we are doing what we need to do right now with respect to some of these mandates.
We have 7 articles, including the ones we've just articulated, that by the discussion on these articles alone, with the limited group that we have on this meeting this evening, have already taken a considerable amount of time just in this subject tonight, Robin. So I think using this as a guideline, the 6 articles that we will try to lump together into two, using a common denominator, these ones that we think are going to be a bit controversial, then the middle of the order, if you will, Jim, is going to be mostly money. So if we can have the articles that pertain to strategy and philosophy of funding at the beginning, have those as a consent agenda type items like we've done in the past, then go into items for which you'll have to identify dollars for funding, identify, that you'll have to read through, Jim, as really the bulk of your time spent, Jim Repetti time spent on these items. Those will be the meat of the agenda, if you will, and then the controversial, where you're going to have to wear your moderator hat, are going to be these last 7 or so items. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So what I would suggest, we have Mike go back and we've identified the 6 that will most likely generate the most conversation. So
Yeah.
I think we should identify the consent agenda items, and then discuss how we're going to, how we're going to group, or in what order will we have these others. And Mike, do we need to have a meeting next week? Do you need to get this done sooner rather than later? Can it wait till the next meeting?
If you don't mind, I'll take a look and
Okay.
maybe I could poll you for a meeting. And then I'm also happy to coordinate some time to talk with Chris Foland and Mark about the rail trail article. And just try to flesh that out, that discussion. I'd be happy to do that.
Right, I
Robin,
think
we only have
6th
March 7th meeting between now and the Monday, the 18th open hearing. We only have March 7th. I'm sorry, we do have March 7th, so we can have another line item for this on March 7th.
Right, but I think the most important thing is, and the housing task force included, people need to start pulling together their presentations.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it's after open hearing, it's all about education.
Yeah. Are the warrant people going to give us a report, Robin, the specific ones that they're liaison to?
So the Warren Committee is gonna be focused on an overview of the budget. So that's the presentation that they will give. And then they will work with presenters as they do to educate people on some of the other warrant articles.
Yeah.
And the schools always present as well.
Yeah.
And capital budget will present. So there'll be the article, an overview of the operating budget, the capital budget, the schools will present, and then I would say these 6 warrant articles should also make presentations. So we can get feedback from those individuals that will be at open hearing to help get a sense of what the questions may be at town meeting. And then Carol, I would imagine the planning board would want to put a short presentation together, or would that not be the case?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, We
Uh,
saw you too.
oh dear.
I mean, we can all still see, so wasn't that,
We
got
can
good.
see, we can see right through that cover too,
Right.
just to let you know.
Don't you just see the pinkish skin of the light through my thumb? As I
No.
cover up the
No,
camera?
we can see right through that. We see all of you.
Okay, what am I drinking?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
so the question was, would the planning board like to make presentations at the open hearing on
So,
the stormwater and the construction hours?
so we can do a quick presentation on the construction hours. We actually have a public hearing, which is required by law on Monday. It's 3 slides, should take literally 2 or 3 minutes at
Okay.
most. And I can't imagine there's going to be much discussion about it based upon the positive feedback we've received so far. The solar bylaw also should be relatively quick. We'll give a presentation on it.
Okay.
The stormwater bylaw is not the planning board's bylaw.
No, I know, I
So,
didn't include that, Carol.
Yeah, so,
That's the DPW and
Right.
that needs to
Yep.
get done, right?
right. So those are the 2 that we would do, but they'll be short.
Okay.
May I ask Jim, do you want to have a final look once the consent items are grouped? And then you see the finance, because you'll have these, let's call it 6 or 7 articles that are likely to have a lot of discussion. And you're going to probably want to space them out or not have them all at the end or all at the beginning or what have you. Is that something you have interest in or no?
Yeah, maybe.
I would think so.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And maybe Michael, when you put together the list, you and I can just touch base and go through it and put our heads together to see what we think would be the
Absolutely.
way to order them.
Okay,
That's
that
great.
makes,
Yeah,
I mean, I know in the past we had that committee. Do you think it's worthwhile reconvening just a small group to work on this with Mike and Chris? Was it efficient, or would you prefer they just try pull it together and then
really the bulk
you
of the work
provide
of the,
feedback?
the bulk of the work of the committee was really dealing with other issues rather
Okay.
than the ordering.
Okay,
It was primarily dealing with the ultimate product that was constructed to advise people who are proponents of warrant articles about the process that they have to proceed through
okay,
in order to get it to town meeting. So I think Michael and I and Dave,
okay,
and
perfect.
clearly, John and Robin will, if you want to be included, we can include you in the conversation too. Hey, Robin, just one other thing. I know that you're going to try to keep the housing study as broad as possible, but I think you really should be prepared to have a lot of hard numbers, because I think that people are going to be voicing a lot of concern given what's happened in Milton. And I think it's very important that people understand what's at stake in terms of financing if the state starts to revoke funding for the town.
We will have that information available, but this is not about. the
I know it's not, Robin, but you and I have been around the track a few times and I mark my words, it will come up.
We will have all that information available.
Good. Forewarned is forearmed.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
All right, so we have an action plan there. So now we're gonna move to item 1.2. And that item is my responsibility as well. And it's to appoint John Jeffries as Chair of the Board of Selectmen effective March 1st. Due to the passing of the board chair, Robert Springett, in December, at our December 11th meeting, we met and we decided that the best way to move forward in the interim would be to split the duties of chair. Since John was going to be chair next year, we thought it would be best that I take the responsibilities as chair in the first half, and then John would take the responsibilities as chair in the second half, and just that way he would have the continuity when he resumed being chair as has been tradition in Dover. On the last year of your term, you are the chair of the Board of Selectmen. So the midpoint was March 1st. And so what I would like to do is I would like to move to appoint John Jeffries as chair of the Board of Selectmen effective March 1st, 2024.
I will second your motion.
All right, all in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
I, John Jeffries.
And hopefully March 5th, we'll have a third selectman.
Exactly right. Dave, you're muted, but I hope you agree with that.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Robin put it very eloquently and very diplomatically, and I think that the flip side of that is Robin took the first half and John Jeffries gets the second half when there's open hearing, caucus, town meeting.
And you won't even be here.
I'm not gonna I said to Dave.
What a nice way to shirk your responsibilities, John.
Yeah, well, the Secretary of State says be in Washington,
Yeah,
DC.
yeah.
Duty to your country, Robin. Duty to my country. So there you go. But
Okay.
thank you very much. This is, as you've heard, it's a lot. We are right at the beginning of we're actually right in the middle of all of our work that we do on an annual basis. So I'm looking forward to having a full complement of selectmen very soon, Dave.
All right, so
Yeah.
the next item on our agenda is approval of an updated compensation plan and reclassification of the Department of Works Director position.
Sure. So I guess
Mike, finally, I get
I'm
to
up.
hand the baton over to somebody else.
you can have a short break. So as the board may recall, the Public Works consolidation study that was done in 2021, as well as it being reiterated during the Director of Public Works recruitment process in 2022, identified that the salary for this newly created position at the time was below market, as the salary was based on the previous position, the Superintendent of Streets position. So this board at that time requested a salary study for the new director position. The original timeline was that a study would be done, a recommendation be made by the Personnel Board and brought to you in time for this current fiscal year, so July 1st of last year. As you know, I'm here, so that means there's a whole lot of turnover, and this got put on the back burner. So between my arrival and also having an HR director, we put this in motion to make this happen. I would like to thank Kevin, who is our DPW director, for his patience, because he did expect this to have been done by now through no fault of anybody's here. But we worked with the Personnel Board over a series of meetings, and in your packet is what was voted and approved by the Personnel Board, which is a DPW director position at a grade 6. And you'll see the salary range, which was done as all positions that we look at as a survey of comparable communities. I will just note, you will see a blank grade 5. The Personnel Board is continuing to work through approval of a finance director position, which will be brought forward hopefully during our operating budget for next fiscal year. However, that process is not finished yet. However, because we've waited and Kevin has waited so long, we didn't want to delay this process. So we're bringing it forward. As you see, that's just a placeholder where in theory that finance director position would live. But what you're approving tonight, or I'm asking you to approve tonight, is the new classification plan for the grade 6, which the sole position in that grade is the DPW director.
So Mike, how should we read the table that's included?
So this, and I apologize, it's not the question you're asking. So the entire table is our non-union classification plan. What
Okay,
you'll see at the bottom half is each grade level, kind of in that gray shade, and all the positions
Okay.
that fall within
Okay.
it. That references the grades, references the top, which show the minimum and maximum salary.
okay, all right, I got it.
You'll see the first three are hourly, as they're non-exempt
Right.
employees, and then 4, 5, and 6 would be exempt. So, you know, your department head level positions.
Okay, okay,
Um,
And,
So-
and Michael, with the various steps as you go out the horizon, the horizontal level, in like step 8, step 9, step 10, do those come with years of service? How did that get established?
Yeah, so that's the concept, is that, you know, you bring a new employee in, you know, somewhere along this plan. So, you know, oftentimes it's at the first step, and then each year of service, each new fiscal year,
Yeah.
assuming things are going well, they have a positive performance review, they take that next step on at each fiscal year. That's correct.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. So Robin, would you like the motion to approve the update to the compensation plan and the reclassification of the Department of Public Works Director position?
right, so I will second that, but I have a quick question. Is this new grade level reflected in the budget? And, because is it effective now?
So yeah, it is effective this current fiscal year, and we are able to absorb it within the existing budget.
Okay,
And we'll be sure this is reflected in FY25 as well.
okay.
Yep.
Is it already reflected in the draft of the budget? I believe.
No, because this was just voted
Okay.
by the personnel board, so it had not been reflected. But I'll work with Kevin to see how we can even potentially absorb that.
Okay.
I'll work with him on that.
All right, then I'll second that. All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, John Jeffries.
Okay. So the next item of business is Board of Selectmen updates. So I will provide some quick updates on things that I've been working on, and then John, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
So I have been working, we have a small working group. It's Cam Hudson of the Warren Committee, myself, Michael, and Carl Valente, and we're working on an presentation for open hearing as well as town meeting to present the budget. And I believe we will have a draft available to present to warrant on Wednesday night, and make sure if we're on the right track and it's understandable. We are channeling Mr. Springett in this presentation, where we are reminding the town of the general philosophy with respect to budget and the town's finances, and how what we're doing is in accordance with that. And then just also being more transparent, or trying to be more transparent at a high level, so not getting into the weeds as to the various components of the budget. And then all the large budget drivers, we will have detailed analyses of. So, you know, we've made a lot of progress, since a lot of people only, it's a refresher course once a year. We thought it would be good to do the 10,000 level overview and just remind everybody where we're coming from and why they're seeing some of the things. So I think we're almost there, Mike. It's been a good committee. So we'll see how well we do with warrant, and then we will again share it. If we'll tweak feedback from Warren, and then we could share it at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting as well. So I've also been working with the Housing Task Force. We have our next meeting set up. We've put together some process checklists, which should prove to be helpful when the town goes through multifamily development processes. But now really what we're starting to focus on is the next steps, and that's just trying to provide the town of Dover with additional tools of how to deal with what seems like every week we have another developer coming in with another development. So we really need to start getting ahead of this and understanding what are the different things we can do that the town would be comfortable with. Capital budget, we are almost done with the capital budget season, so to speak. We voted on the last item last night. We have one more item. Park and Rec was going to go back and get another quote, and I believe they're going to present that to us by the end of the month. And then capital budget will be completed. We, again, as part of the small finance group, we added the capital budget attributes to the budget, because that's a very important piece of the budget. And we felt that it was really important to be able to provide the town with a comprehensive budget for what the funding requirements are. So I think we're on the right track there. And I believe that is all I worked on the last since our last meeting. Those are my updates.
Bill, your updates. Thank you very much. So I'm gonna start with Hale and Open Space. Open Space has given back to the Board of Selectmen a review of items that we have discussed. We are working on receiving feedback from several of our town committees regarding Hale and the CR. So we have been doing all of this, and we have been receiving their input, and we're expecting to get a lot more from the other groups as everybody is on the call this evening knows. We're in the middle of preparing for town meeting, preparing for open hearing and town meeting. So we really want to be as prepared for all these items. Hale obviously being one that's not on the town meeting. So while we still have to keep it in front of everybody and on everybody's mind, it's something that's being worked upon steadily and from all of these groups. So that is the first item, which is Hale and Open Space. The financial services review. David, I know you were waiting for Kyle's response when we last spoke, and you and Kate both met. I reported that you and Kate both met with Kyle as a key fact in going through and establishing with him what exactly we will need. Did you have a feedback or a follow-up with him last week?
Last week, no. Due to the fact that it's the middle of budget season, we are trying to be cognizant of his workload. So we plan on getting back to that as soon as these budgets get tightened up and in the selectmen's hands, and then we'll get back to it. What we were looking for Kyle to try and find is the source documents for some of the town's larger pools of money, such as the Hovey Fund. What does the trust for the Hovey Fund say? And once we find that out, then we can go to the library board and ask them what their needs are, what their timeframes are, and proceed logically through each of the larger pools of money and then make a recommendation to move forward from there based on common sense and knowledge.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Carroll Building Committee, we met with, on Monday of last week, we met with the building committee. Robin, you used the term channeling Bob Springett. I was very much channeling Bob Springett last Monday and pushed back on every item that we received from our owner's representative with regards to costs and cost overruns. So there are items that we feel are absolutely not acceptable that they're asking for cost overruns on, and we made it crystal clear that it's not just going to be a rubber stamp, that we want detail and explanation. One is a very expensive item for fire. It's a separation, just to give you a very brief overview, it's a separation of the tank of the fire suppression and the tanks that are going to be in the ground when the tanks are being drained. There's a long discussion.
So are these water tanks, John?
Yeah, water tanks. But what happened is our fire safety people asked if something that was not in the design, review, something that's a quote unquote nice to have, could be added. And our designer representative said, yes, it could be added, came back to us with a very significant request for an amount over and above the budget. And my immediate reaction was no. That's not something that we voted on. It's something that you want. It's something that you think might be nice to have. Why do you want this? So what we have been trying to establish every meeting that I have had with the building committee is, don't expect we're going to simply say yes. I want detail as to why. Why are these things happening? Why are you asking for more money when there wasn't a snow day? Things along those lines. So it has been a continuing education, and Robin, to use the term, I am continuing to channel Bob Springett and push back on every item that they have brought to our attention. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's the way it's been happening.
It's good to ask the question, right?
Yeah, it's what I have found is there is never a why. They just give you the engineering as to, this is the best practice. This is the way that we have looked at it and we decide it should be this way. They don't say why. And it's very frustrating. So that is Carroll, Financial, Building, and Open Space, Hale. So that is it for me.
So I should have looked at my notes, because the one thing I did not give an update on was the water task force. And we actually had a really good meeting earlier this week to go over the final report that will get issued for the town, as well as to look at the modeling that was done with respect to the aquifer sustainability. And we, again, it's been hugely beneficial to have a hydrologist on that committee, meaning Ron Wyrick, because he really understands the stuff and asks the right questions. And I think we have a few follow-up items, and we will be in a position to provide both of those reports to the town. We asked CDM Smith if they could do some, especially with the aquifer resiliency study, it is hugely beneficial to have their experts go over the presentation. And so we talked to them about having them putting together a presentation or an open hearing for the people in the town that want to listen in. And then we'll put that on the website, because personally, I just got so much more from him going over the study or the PowerPoint than just reading it myself.
Robin, can I ask a follow-up, with regards to water, because we have our resident water expert, Carl Warnick, on in the meeting with us this evening. I have received several complaints or inquiries from residents of Aquarian. Two items. One, why is there bubbles in the water coming out of the tap? When you open the tap water and you fill a container, whether it's a glass or a mug or just a jug, it's filled with bubbles. Carl Warnick, have you received that complaint inquiry?
It could be the aerator in your faucet.
It could be, but it happens with all the faucets in all the waters in all the houses.
It
So-
could be, John, and sorry, my camera's off on my laptop.
Oh, you at Carol Lisbon's house?
No.
Did
I'm
you
at
find
home.
your glasses, Carl?
I had to buy them on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Both of those comments and questions were inappropriate, Carl.
Sorry.
I apologize for Robin.
No, because
It
Carl
could be-
understands.
They could be flushing and you're gonna get air bubbles. I have
Okay.
not received any complaints from any residents, because usually they'll come to me.
You are
I
the
haven't
expert.
heard anything.
You are the expert.
Well, maybe
Well-
we could just ask them, Carl, just shoot them an
I-
email.
I could find out.
Okay.
I'll call Aquarian tomorrow.
Carl, the second part of this with regards to Aquarian and water, Aquarian made it public that they're selling their water division. The Eversource made it public that they're selling Aquarian, the water division.
Yes.
And I don't know if your contacts for the town have had any conversation with you as it pertains to service, and the impact that it may or may not have on us.
I heard that Aquarian was, not Aquarian, Eversource was selling
Eversource.
it.
Yeah.
Right. So
Um,
Eversource is divesting their non-core assets.
Right.
which happens, from what I understand in my conversations, it happens quite frequently.
It
Right.
does. Yep.
So I haven't heard any official word from Aquarian. Or Eversource, so I don't know. It's just what I've heard through the grapevine in the last week. I don't believe it's gonna disrupt any of the residents in Dover. Cause they'll just have another company come in, just like when Dover Water Company sold to Colonial and Colonial sold to Aquarian.
Got it. Thank you. Have you found the switch for the lights yet?
That's been all taken care of for you, John.
All right, so Mike, it's your turn.
Sure. So most of what I've been working on, we've talked about tonight, so I won't rehash the warrant, the budgets. Hail, John, just I was gonna mention about Aquarian, so you beat me to the punch. I have reached out to Aquarian just for the public's benefit, and again, I think most people know this, but we don't have any regulatory oversight. However, we work really closely with them, so we will be sure to do that, around water quality issues and continuing our service. There is regulatory oversight at the state level, so any sort of sale does have to go through a extensive review process with DPU and DEP. So we'll continue to stay on top of that and monitor it, and certainly share information with residents, as we receive it. I also want to mention we were notified by Algonquin, the gas pipeline that does run through town. They'll be doing some maintenance work in Dover. it's scheduled to begin in late April and extended to early July. This specific area is around the Charles River between Dover and Needham off of Claybrook Road. They will be notifying residents directly, particularly in that area, before they commence any work. But I just wanted to make you aware. A lot of their work, because it's federally over regulated, it's exempt from a lot of our local like Wetlands Protection Act, things like that. But they are still proactively working with our Conservation Commission and our building department, providing them with information. So again, we'll be sure to share information in our newsletter and online as we get more specifics. And the last thing I just wanted to share, and actually going to turn over to Chris for a second. We've been working on our communication plan. As the board may know, at a previous town meeting funded money for a communication study. And I just wanted to ask Chris, I know we're running behind our schedule, but Chris, if you want to provide just a little
This
brief
is important.
overview. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be quick. So, as I've mentioned before, for the past, I'm working to understand, our current communication practices, our tools, and kind of our assets for communications. And kind of through that process, I've identified, the development of a strategic communications plan as a solution to better understand our own practices, but also the needs and goals of the Dover community. So I've done a lot of research, and I've approached the Collins Center for Public Management for assistance with developing the communications plan. It's going to provide an analysis of our current efforts on communication and also recommendations for improvements and enhancements. The main deliverable for this project is going to be an actionable communications plan that we can implement and improve our communication strategy. It's going to include performance indicators, goals, and strategies for improving town communications. So, we're going to engage with our staff and also the public throughout the process. So hopefully we'll have a really good understanding of what the goals are and have a path to accomplish them.
Hey, Chris, can I ask you, how do you see building into this study, to this work that you're doing, our communication consultant that we currently have? They seem a mystery to me. I don't know how they are performing. I don't know how to assess their performance. And I know they're very expensive, but I really don't know what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the strategy, the study will show us what we need to do. I think how we're utilizing that consultant right now, they're probably underutilized from what I've experienced in my first 3 months. But, the details with them, we're relying on them for production of press releases. And also they provide, if needed, 24/7 crisis communications support. So if there were something, to go wrong, which we all hope never does and hopefully never will, they would be there to kind of back us up if we had a large media presence and we needed staging and some of that stuff that we don't have the resources for. So it's kind of those two components. And I will say, in regards to the consultant, we'll definitely be looking at our contract with them and potentially revising our agreement with them to fit our needs and approach a little bit better.
Yeah, John,
I know, Chris, you had sent out a while ago the plan, and you gave examples of some of the work that the Collins group had done, and we owe you any feedback that we have. So I will make sure to get that to you in the next week or so, before the deadline.
Great, thank you.
And John, just to add on, your question is timely because that's an internal conversation we've been having, and Chris has been meeting with Guilfoyle as our consultant. And as we prepare to look at the question, do we want to renew a contract, what that looks like, I think Chris is going to be meeting with them next week. So we'll come back to you with some more information on that. So it is a timely question.
Thank you very much. Do we use the Guilfoyle people? Meaning when you need them, Chris, when you need them, like the Guilfoyle people, what do you call them for? Like, do you call them for conversations about maybe the event that happened, the tragic event that happened in the communication of that in December? Is that something? Because on their website, about one of the only things that I remember was crisis management, right? Bad things happen, call us, we'll tell you what to say. Did we do that in December?
Yeah, so I can hop
Sorry,
in.
just
Yeah,
cut out a
so-
little bit, so.
So we did reach out to them. One of the things that again, a terrible tragedy, but just operationally, one of the things we benefited from in that case is the DA came in and utilized their press people. So, in that situation, we had Guilfoyle ready, they were aware of the situation, but the press releases, the media inquiries all went through the DA's office. So while we did contact them, we didn't necessarily need to utilize their services because of the situation, how it was handled by the DA's office.
Right, and I will say last year for town meeting, I utilized them and they assisted with the presentation that the Board of Selectmen and Warrant Committee put together. And they were helpful with their input and, suggestions on how to improve the PowerPoint. So I think, if you do reach out to them, they certainly do have the expertise. And I think, Chris, it's really your call on how much we really need them when and whether or not the contract reflects the amount that we use them.
Yeah, I think,
Oh, it's
Robin,
a
that's
good
well said.
occasion to do that.
That's sort of the mystery part that I was
Yeah.
referring to.
I mean, they are, if you send them an email and ask for help, they're very responsive. I have found. And they had, they had decent, I thought their feedback was helpful. It's sometimes really good to get another set of eyes that hasn't been really involved in the process because they see things you just don't see.
Yeah, and I think just to wrap this, if you will, they really provide an excellent service. Their expertise is top notch. They're very responsive. The question really is, are we utilizing them in the best way possible? Is our contract appropriate at the level it's set at or not?
Right.
It's not a question of what they offer is great. It's just a matter of, are we using it to its full?
Right, and do we need them? Because,
Correct.
we entered into the contract at a different time.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
We didn't have Chris.
That's right.
Right, but,
Chris
we
can do it
brought-
all.
Right, but we brought Chris on to do more than just communication, his goal is to learn the business, and we have to make sure we give him that opportunity as well.
Absolutely. All right,
Thank
and
you,
then,
Michael.
with that's all Chris and I had for tonight.
Okay, so the next item of business on the agenda is the consent agenda. And included in the consent agenda is the acceptance of grants. And the first grant is for fiscal year 24, the local cultural council allocation of $5,500. The next one is the municipal cybersecurity awareness grant for services. Then there is the approval of the appointment of Alan Heinlein as a constable through May of 2024. And then there's approval of 2024 special one-day liquor licenses for February 17th. That one is retroactive, March 14th, and March 16th. So I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Robin Hunter.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right, and so next item on this agenda is executive session. So I am going to move that the board enter into executive session, not to return to open session, to prepare for a strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel. Further, as chair, I declare that an open meeting discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town. And I will now take a roll call vote. So what this means in simple English is we will adjourn this meeting, not to return to this meeting, and we will go to executive session.
Hi, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter. So thank you all. It's been a pleasure to serve as your interim chair. Next meeting, I will be more than happy to be a member, and we are hopeful that we will be welcoming a new member. So there will be 3 of us to split some of this work.